Elrond was born in 532 AD in the family of Arundel the Sailor and Elwing, and was the twin brother of Elros. They spent their childhood among a mixed people, refugees from Doriath and Gondolin in the harbors of Sirion. Their mother was the owner of one of the three Silmarils, stolen by Beren and Luthien from Morgoth. When Maedhros, who took an oath in the name of Eru to quarrel with the owner of the Silmarils, asked Elwing to return the stone, she refused. Hello everyone, this is Story Hunter. In the last video, I told you about Luthiens, an elven princess from the people of Sindar, the daughter and only child of the king of Doriath, Elu Thingol. You can find a link to this video in the tips or via the link in the description. In this video, I will tell you about Elrond, a half-elf who chose the fate of the elves. Who is he? How did he appear? What happened to him? Thank you for your comments, ideas for new videos, likes, and subscriptions. This really motivates me to create new videos. Then the Fëanor attacked the harbors of Sirion, and a massacre began in which many of the people of Arundel perished when he sailed to seek the lands of Aman in the western seas. Their mother threw herself into the sea with the Silmaril, but by the will of Ulmo she survived and arrived on the ship with the sacred stone to Arundel. They feared that their children would be killed, but did not return for them, deciding to try to find Haman. However, the abandoned Elros and Elrond were taken in by Maedhros's brother, Maglor, who loved them as his own children. The Fëanor and the twins took refuge on Aemon Erebus, where they possibly remained until the end of the War of Wrath. All of the clan of Arundel, by the special grace of the Valar, were given the opportunity to choose their fate. Elves or men. Elros chose the fate of people because he was closest to his father and his people. He became the first king of the Dúnedain, those who were given the lands of Númenor in the middle of the great ocean. He was named King Tar Miniatar. He lived a long time even for the Númenóreans, who had their lifespan extended, and even for his descendants, 500 years. Elrond chose the fate of the elves and became the squire of the High King of the Noldor and the head of the second house, Gil-galad. He and all the elves who remained in Middle-earth went beyond the arid Luin and settled there. Elrond lived with his lord Gil-galad in Lindon, in the Silver Havens. In 1200 CE, Sauron came to the elves, calling himself Anatar. He took on a beautiful appearance and posed as a messenger of the Valar, wanting to persuade the elves to serve him. But Gil-galad and Elrond doubted his words, although they did not guess who he really was, and did not allow Sauron into Lindon. However, the Noldor of Eregion, under the leadership of Celebrimbor, wanted to know more, to make Middle-earth like Valinor, and accepted Sauron. He deceived Gwaithimir Dain into creating the Rings of Power, and Celebrimbor personally forged the 3 elven rings, and these rings could grant the elves immortality in mortal lands. After this, Sauron forged the One Ring and cast a spell to enslave the owners of the other rings. Celebrimbor immediately learned about this and, after consulting with Galadriel, gave one of the rings to her and sent the other 2 to Gil-galad in Lindon. Sauron started the war, wanting to take away the rings. He besieged Eregion, and Gil-galad sent Elrond with a large force of Noldor Lindon to the aid of Celebrimbor. But although Elrond managed to unite with Celeborn's army, they were too late. Sauron had already managed to take Eregion under siege, and Sauron's troops were so huge that he was able to simultaneously repel the attacks of Celeborn and Elrond and besiege Eregion. In the end, the kingdom was taken by storm in 1697 CE, and Celebrimbor lost in battle with Sauron and was killed in captivity, but did not reveal under torture where the 3 rings were. Nevertheless, the 9 and 7 rings went to Sauron. After this, Sauron unleashed his forces on the army of Elrond, which was joined by the remnants of the Noldor of Eregion. But still, the forces were too unequal, and Elrond's army was in danger of destruction if the dwarves of Moria, sent by Durin III, and the elves of Lothlorien had not struck Sauron in the rear. Thanks to this, Elrond and the remnants of the Noldor managed to retreat to the northwest. and it was then that he founded the fortress of Imladris, Rivendell, where he took refuge. Sauron did not pursue Elrond, for he turned against the dwarves of Moria. However, the gates of Moria slammed shut, and Sauron failed to defeat the dwarves and elves. He began to ravage Eriador, which was almost entirely in his power. At the same time, Imladris was besieged, and Sauron, suspecting that Gil-galad had the rings, moved towards Lindon. And when the Philothrim of Círdan and the Noldor of Gil-galad were almost defeated, the Númenóreans came to the aid of the elves, and their number and power were great, so that the hordes of Sauron were driven back with great losses. In 1701 CE, the army besieging Imladris found itself sandwiched between Elrond and Gil-galad, and was routed by them. Sauron was defeated and driven out of Eriador, fleeing to Mordor. Elrond from then on ruled Imladris, which later became known as Rivendell, which, as it was decided, was to become the main stronghold of the elves in the east of Eriador instead of the destroyed Eregion. Gil-galad appointed Elrond as his governor in Eriador and gave him one of the 3 rings of power, Vilya. At the end of the Second Age, Galadriel and her daughter Celebrian arrived in Imladris in search of Celeborn. There, Elrond first saw Celebrian and fell in love with her, although he was silent about it. When Sauron returned from the defeated Númenor, he began to gather his former power, and Gil-galad, worried, decided that it was necessary to start a war. In this, he was supported by the king of the Dúnedain and his friend Elendil. Thus, in 3430 CE, the War of the Last Alliance with Sauron began. The troops stayed in Imladris for a while. In 3434 BE, the troops moved to Mordor. Elrond also took part in the war as one of the commanders of Gil-galad and fought on the field of Dagorlad. In 3441 CE, after the protracted siege of Barad-dûr, Elrond witnessed the battle of Elendil and Gil-galad with Sauron on the slope of Orodruin, and the disincarnation of Sauron when Isildur cut off his finger with the One Ring. After the battle, Elrond and Círdan advised Isildur to throw the One Ring into the fire of Orodruin, but he did not heed the advice. In 109 TE, Elrond marries Celebrian, daughter of Celeborn and Galadriel. In 130 TE, they had twins Elladan and Elrohir, and in 241 TE, their daughter Arwen. In 2509 TE, Celebrian was traveling from Rivendell to Lorien and was captured by orcs. Elladan and Elrohir rescued her from captivity, but although Elrond was able to heal her wounds, Celebrian was never able to forget her experience, and a year later sailed to the west.